glen to glen and down the mountainside. The summer is gone and all the roses falling. It's you, must go and I must bide. But come ye back when summer's in the meadow, and when the valley's hushed and white with snow. It's I'll be here in sunlight or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, I love you so. But when he comes, if all the flowers are dying, if I am dead as dead I will maybe, then come and find the place where I am lying, and kneel and say an Ave there for me. And I shall hear those soft you tread above me, and on my grave will warmer, sweeter be. And you shall bend and tell me that you love me, and I shall sleep in peace until you come to me.
Thank you, Patty and Ron. And we should say that Patty Coyle is also the director of St. Helena Drama, and all of our students, the student actors that you see today are all students in her class, and she's prepared them very well and costumed them, and they'll be very delightful. So I'm going to give you a little brief history of the cemetery. This land was originally part of the Wapo people before the white folks showed up in about 1845. And then the Hudson family owned this property. And they came across the plains in 1845 with the Grigsby-Ide party and with the York family and the Elliott family. So when Sarah Hudson died in 1856, she was buried here in what was a family cemetery. And we'll see that in a moment. I'll show you where it is. And then the Hudsons later gave a piece of land that became the nucleus of what is now the cemetery. It's been added onto with land purchases many times, and so we have about 25 acres here now. The St. Helena Cemetery Association was founded in 1872. The board of directors managed the cemetery. I'm the secretary. John Sales is the president. Steve Taplin's on our board. Where are you, Steve? Over there. And so we take care and we manage all of the affairs of this cemetery. It's non-sectarian and receives no public funds. It's run as a nonprofit. So as far as the St. Helena Historical Society goes, we are also a struggling nonprofit organization. We appreciate your coming today, but we would also appreciate your financial support to become a member or give a donation. We're also selling some wonderful local history books here today. So on your way out, so please consider looking at the books we have, becoming a member, and perhaps leaving a donation. So the cemetery is divided up into blocks. And we have a big, huge book in the office with the actual chart of each block and each person. There's squares, a little grid, there's squares, and it has everybody's name in it, who's ever in the plot. So this is block 1 right here. So it's the oldest part of the cemetery. And so I mentioned before about William Hudson. So that's the Hudson plot right there, that beautiful tall monument. And there's more Hudsons in those beautiful markers there to the left. So the Hudsons and the Yorks intermarried and came across the plains together, and they're buried together in death. They're still together. The Yorks are just that next one over, tall white marker there, not so tall as this one, but that's the York plot. And then over here where I'm standing, there's lots of little plaques there. This is for people who were cremated, and they wanted like a small economical spot, and their records in the office like everyone else. And so that each one has a little bronze marker here. But we also have a standing cremains building further over that way for people who just want a little niche. So lots of different choices. So we're going to go that way and turn left at the next corner. Well, hello, Connolly. Please tell us about the Conn family.
Granddad, it's a marvel to speak to you like this. Will you please tell me how you came to America?
Ah, my wee lassie. I was born in Northern Ireland in 1832. Soon after I passed 20 years of age, I left Ireland forever and sailed to America, to New Orleans.
Why there?
My uncle was in the cattle business in Illinois, so I went there. But California called to me. My other uncle, John Conn, was there.
How did you get to California?
I went to Philadelphia and got passage by steamer to Panama, across the jungle by mule, then by ship to San Francisco.
That must have been very exciting.
I kept traveling that last 50 miles, straight to Uncle John, and in the valley already named for him, Conn Valley.
Did you get rich?
I held my own, but a year later I was back working with my uncle, building a stake of my own. I knew this was my home to stay and became a citizen.
What was Conn Valley like in those days?
Much the same as in your day. We all knew each other. Neighbor helped neighbor. All pitched in to run the school.
Well, how did you make money?
In just 10 years, my partner and I had acquired a great deal of the Conn Valley, mostly for running cattle and grazing sheep. Almost 1,000 acres.
But, tell me, did you have a sweetheart?
The girl of my dreams was Miss Mary McCall. I became an American citizen in 1864, and just a week after, a married man. I was 32 and your grandma was but 18.
Tell me about my mama and Aunt Annie.
We welcomed your Aunt Anna in 1865, and your Mama Emma in 1868, to our great joy. 'Tis a sorrow still to recall your Aunt Anna, suffering so from the consumption.
It must have broken your hearts. To lose your firstborn?
So young. 'Twas on her passing, with heartbreaking, that I drove the wagon to town to purchase this very plot for Annie, and now the rest of us.
How big was the ranch?
By 1867, I had 960 acres, mostly to graze sheep and cattle. But I caught the grape fever and had 33 acres of vineyard by 1876.
Well, how did you learn how to grow grapes?
In 1875, I helped found the St. Helena Viticultural Club. That means that Charles Krug and others taught us about how to plant and grow grapes.
It's so weird to think about, Granddad. So, you grew the grapes, but did you make the wine as well?
No, we sold the grapes to a winery in Conn Valley. I sold them land to build their winery, then I sold them grapes.
What did you do on your free time?
Ah, helping run the school. Be on the grand jury, a sort of government honesty watcher. Sometimes we had arguments in Conn Valley that needed to end, so I became a sort of judge.
What kind of arguments?
The last one I helped with was a fight over water from the Conn Creek. Too many claimed it was their water. I settled that one. But after that flood, though the ranch recovered quickly, we began to spend time on our Bindon property closer to town. Then, dear Ivy, then came the 1890s, and all the calamities.
Oh no, what kind of calamities?
Ah, the troubles began when your Aunt Annie died. Then your old granddad broke his collarbone. And the doctor trying to help me? He broke my ribs. Later your daft granddad broke his leg. Dark days, Ivy, dark days.
What happened to the grapevines?
All through the 1890s, the phylloxera insect crept in, killing our grapevines, sucking them dry. But the worst calamity of all, I lost my Mary in '98. Her kidneys gave out.
Mama said you lived with her?
Yes, your mama persuaded me that I needed her care. So I bid farewell to my friends and neighbors in St. Helena and Conn Valley, and spent the rest of my days in Napa with my sweet Emma and your papa, George Hobson.
Does look like you came home now to rest here in St. Helena.
Well, yes, indeed I did, lass. My final journey. 'Twas by train in 1907. And then, at the railroad depot, folks gathered to walk to the cemetery, led by the Reverend Mitchell, to this very spot. Here, where I rest in peace, surrounded by friends and family.
What a story. Thomas Fealy, born in Ireland, came to America and worked hard, but his son brought shame on the family.
That whole Fealy family was a little sketchy, but Richard was truly the black sheep of the family.
I remember Richard growing up. He was always getting into trouble. He stole candy and pushed over outhouses.
He stole a fishing pole from one of the neighbors. There were just too many kids in that Fealy family. They never learned about discipline.
What I remember most was his slicing my nose in a barroom brawl when I was just 17.
I remember reading about that in the Star's police report. Richard was tried for assault and found guilty.
We were quarreling over some girl. Richard vowed to fight me for her.
He took a drink of whiskey, pulled the knife out of the sheath from his waist, and sliced it right down through your nose.
It all happened so quickly. No one saw what happened. Everyone was screaming.
Yep. Still have scars and trouble breathing.
Richard bought some valuable harnesses from Stokes and McCandless in Napa. He never paid for them.
Well, John, you may not remember, but in 1912, Richard Fealy declared bankruptcy. So there's little chance of us ever paying for those harnesses.
Richard married Laura Center, who owned a house in town.
Her mother, Mary Center, gave her 20 acres, located across the street from St. Gothard's Inn at Main and Pratt.
The Fealy home in town burned in a mysterious fire in 1913. Just the third fire for the Fealys in 2 years. Very suspicious.
They had moved all the furniture out of the house. Then they made holes in the walls and put candles in them.
Everyone knew it was arson. Richard and Laura had shut off the water to the house and fled town.
Unlucky for them, St. Helena Fire Department was having dinner right across Main Street at St. Gothard's Inn. Saw smoke, immediately put it out.
Well, the capper for the Fealy family was that in about 1915, the DA arrested and filed charges against Richard, his father Thomas, and his mother Mary.
I believe that they were released, but they knew about the scheme to burn the house down.
What a sad ending for that family. It all came full circle. Richard was born in Rutherford and died there. Not a soul to mourn him.
Richard's buried right here, along with his parents and his siblings. These are hard to read, but they did manage to put together quite an impressive family plot. All right, thank you very much. Okay, well, we're here to learn about the Dwyer family and Thomas Dwyer with Mary and Cecilia, the daughter. Please go ahead.
Mother, can you tell me some stories about how you and Father came from Ireland to St. Helena?
Yes, my dear Cecilia. Your father, Thomas Dwyer, came from County Waterford in 1848 when he was just 20 years old.
Where in America did they go?
Well, he settled in Boston with many other Irish families. After 5 years at settled in Boston, he heard tales about mining for gold in California.
Did he strike it rich?
No, he staked 2 claims and bought 100 acres of vineyard land in St. Helena and became our home.
How did that happen?
Well, Thomas reached the ripe old age of 31 and decided he needed a wife, so he went to from California to New York, and where I was living as a recent immigrant from Ireland, and we got married.
And he brought you to the mining camp?
Well, yes, he did. Where 6 of our 11 children were born: Margaret, William, Teresa, Katie, Edward, and Philip. Then we moved to San Francisco for a year and had Agnes, our 7th child.
Oh, Mother, you must have been very busy taking care of 7 children.
Very busy and hoping for more space to raise them. We decided to buy some land from George Yount in Oakville, and we moved to Oakville.
And that's why your last 2 children were born in Oakville. I loved being the youngest in the family. There was always something going on.
Yes, there was. And it was nice having you guys living in Oakville with us. And the great diphtheria happened, and where 6 of my dear little children died, and thousands others the last 2 months of 1877.
I don't remember the epidemic as I was born 2 years later.
Well, while 6 of my little children are buried in the Catholic cemetery in Colma,
Our family was member of St. Helena Catholic Parish.
and it was nice having the 5 remaining children live at home with us.
Of the 11 children in our family, only 5 of us survived enjoy living in Oakville.
Our farm was very important, so we had a road named after us, Dwyer Road.
I live in St. Helena and Oakville, where I, as a single woman, own my own home. I later moved to San Francisco, but I still enjoy visiting with friends in St. Helena until I died in 1942.
It was nice having one of you guys married in our large Irish family of 11 children. It was nice having you living at home in your adult years.
When I died, my only surviving relative was a nephew from Atherton.
Thomas Dwyer lived lives here and would be proud of how his strong faith and prosperity in this country and how big of an impact it made.
Well, we're here at the Greer family plot, and we're going to hear the sad story of John Greer.
My father and I were passengers in the city of Chester of San Francisco that fateful morning of August 24th, 1888.
I will always remember that morning. August in San Francisco is cold, and the fog was dense, so my wife and I stayed down in our stateroom.
We were on our way to Eureka. The fog was so thick you couldn't see the Alcatraz from the deck of the ship.
We heard the whistles blow, and I looked out the window to see the shape of a huge ship bearing down on us. We were just within the Golden Gate.
We were standing at the back portion of the ship when I heard the whistles blow.
A collision knocked us to the floor. My wife and I rushed up the stairs to the bow of the ship.
I looked out and saw a big steamship about 300 yards ahead of us. The SS Oceanic had been hit in the stern of the ship.
We were lucky ones to board one of the lifeboats that the crew had launched, and I looked out to see my brother and niece, little Josie, struggling forward. I shouted to them to get onto one of the lifeboats.
The morning on the Chester was a nightmare that continues to haunt me. The accident wasn't a result of carelessness. The fog was too thick.
The Chester stern sank so quickly.
We did everything right besides the dense fog. There was also a strong current.
My father ran back to our stateroom where he had $5,000 in gold. I begged him not to go. That's where I last saw my dear father.
Our crew responded immediately by lowering lifeboats and preservers into the sea. There were so many acts of bravery.
The last thing I saw was my brother and niece, drowned under the waves in the massive wreckage.
I was so grateful to the Oceanic crew for rescuing me. Many of them were Chinese.
We were lucky ones that made it back to shore.
I inquired with the steamship company to see if a passenger named Greer had been found. He had not. That's when I gave up all hope.
Tell me more about your father.
John Greer was a native of Ireland, 60 years of age. He came to California in 1855, then came to Napa Valley 1 year later.
What was his trade?
For 14 years, he conducted the White Sulphur Springs. Then he bought 100 acres. There was also a vineyard in Rutherford that he was so very proud of.
I'm so sorry for your loss. It was a huge tragedy.
John Greer worked hard because he didn't want us to suffer the poverty he grew up with. I lost a father whom I loved so much, and I continue to miss him till this day.
Thank you very much. And, this was such a tragedy for this family that they noted it on his gravestone over here. Lost on the city of Chester. Well, we are here to hear about the Dowdells, and James and Mary, would you please tell us?
My dear wife, we had our struggles, but it turned out all right in the end.
I remember the Ireland of Arbor. You in Country Loath and I in Country Monaghan. What luck that we met in Philadelphia.
I visited there in 1868 and met you there. We got married at St. Malachi's Church, and off we went by ship to Panama.
That was a dreadful train trip across Panama to the Pacific. And then we had to find a ship to take us to San Francisco, but we made it.
Luck of the Irish was with me when I got the job in San Francisco, where I helped build a winery and learn to make wine.
All of our children were born in St. Helena. James, Arthur, Edward, and Walter.
then Albert, Joseph, and little Kate. 7 in all. A real Irish family. We bought 60 acres.
6 sons and a daughter. Our boys worked hard on the farm where we grew hops and grapes.
We needed a lot of help to pick the crop. I built the wine in 1886 and began to make large amounts of wine.
Our son Walter helped you on the winery until there was a terrible accident. Alas, my dear boy.
Yes, his arm got caught in the grape crusher. Blood poisoning set in, and the unfortunate lad died. He was only 15 years old.
You grew grapes for many growers, but in 1891, 5,000 tons of grapes were made into wine.
But we could only make wine a short amount of time because of that blasted lawsuit with Carpi. We had a sales contract for wine, but the price was too low, so I sold the wine to Chevalier.
Carpi sued us in a case that lasted for 5 years and ended our wine business. But we won in the end and pulled out our grapevines and planted more hops.
This is when we focused on hop growing alone. We had 55 acres planted, and over 100 people helped us pick it.
It was always a problem to find skilled pickers for the hops. The Chinese were just the best workers. But then there was a so-called accident.
In a mysterious fire, our 2 large barns, 2 hop houses, and 118 barrels of wine were destroyed. The anti-Chinese mob was never caught.
If Chinese labor was not allowed, what were we to do?
Dowdell and Son still needed a lot of help to pick
The crop. We raised the price from 16 to 20 cents per barrel, or $1.25 per 100 pounds. Free transportation to the field was furnished.
This is when we asked the locals to help us pick the hops. Contests were held for the fastest picker, and prizes were given out at our local hop dance.
In 1901, Father Crowley sent us orphan boys from San Francisco to pick the hops. We had 32 boys, aged from 12 to 18.
Our hops' yield and quality was ruled finest in the state.
Then I got my terrible fever. My lungs were congested, and the doctor said I had typhoid fever.
You were only 62 years old, dear husband. We tried so hard to save you.
The doctor said I would recover, but on March 31st,
1907,
the Lord called me home.
Your funeral was held at the local Catholic cemetery. And then, local, what?
The church.
Yeah, the local Catholic church. Famous winemen carried your casket, including Jacob Schramm, Jacob Ballinger, and Jean Shea.
And here we rest with all 7 of our children, together for eternity.
It's so good to reminisce about our life together here in St. Helena. I was one lucky Ohio boy to spend my life with a fine Irish lass.
Yes, my dear Augustus. Me and my family of 11 immigrated here from County Kerry during the Ireland potato famine when I was just a young girl.
We met soon after you got here, and we married a year later when we were both 29 years old.
My brother Patrick moved here in 1856. I followed him a year later. St. Helena was an amazing place to find a husband.
And a good place for business opportunity, as I found out after moving here from Ohio. In the early days, I worked here as a butcher, and I began to buy land in what is now downtown Helena. There wasn't much here when I arrived.
You can say that again. You built the first hotel in St. Helena called the St. Helena House. I hear there's a grocery store there now called the Sunshine Food Market.
And I built our first home on Main Street. I hear that is now the Hotel St. Helena. So many changes happened over the 168 years.
Yes, you owned so much land. You eventually owned everything from Spring Street to Madrona Avenue to Oak Avenue to Allen Avenue.
I owned so much land I was able to donate to parcels to the Catholic, Presbyterian, and Methodist churches, and another parcel to build a grammar school.
Those are very generous gifts for our small community. I hear they named a street after us, Tainter Street.
Yes, I just wish they could fill in some of those potholes.
Oh, Augustus, you're always trying to improve things.
I'm just trying to improve things for my family, my dear.
And you did make things great for us. Our children were lucky to grow up in a new house at Kearney and Adams. Unlucky that you died in that house suddenly at age 52.
I love that house and my family. My heart just couldn't go on any longer.
You had so many land deals in the works that it took us almost 3 years to settle your will.
Well, I hate to mention it, but since you brought it up to my attention, why did it take you 3 years to move my grave monument in place?
Well, I thought you deserved Italian marble, which is almost 9.5 feet tall. And those things took time in those days.
I'm sorry I wasn't around to comfort you when 3 of our 4 kids died the untimely deaths.
Yes, it was my burden to bear alone. First Rachel at 25, then Annie at 42, and then Mary at 47.
And you lived another 36 years after I died, and our son John's life ended tragically when he was hit by a car on Highway 29 on a dark, stormy night.
Only one of our children married, but no grandchildren, so the Tainter family bloodline came to an end.
Well, I still remember that we have all of these people here talking about us.
Yes. It makes my Irish eyes smell to think back at the happy times of the pioneer family of St. Louis.